Good evening. Namaskar. Today we are doing this meeting. It's not a webinar. It is you talking to expert, because we have all been through this COVID first wave and second wave. And second wave saw us, having so many women dying, much more than the first wave. And we were all waiting for vaccination, and the vaccination was taking time to come. Everybody wanted to know the reason why. And then finally the vaccination came, but then it is still not taken up at a pace at which we would have wanted, because patients, they are not, willing to take it. They have reservation. And not only patients, even the doctors have reservation. So we thought that AOGD should take this initiative, and we have with us, stalwarts in the field of gynecology, stalwarts who had made this happen, and people like Dr. Monica Rana. Dr. Monica Rana is Director of Directorate of Family Welfare, and she is responsible for all the vaccination, immunization, and she is the one who is going to see, how it is rolled out and how it is being given to the people. Then we have with us Dr. Pratima Mittal, who has been our advisor to Ministry for all the matters, small or great, and Dr. Neja Batla. Dr. Neja Batla was there in the advisory committee, which has pushed this vaccination for pregnant females. She is right now just finished a round with the director, so she'll be joining us in 2 minutes. So meanwhile, I would request Dr. Pratima Mittal to give us an overview, what has happened, how is this going to help the vaccination help us. Dr. Pratima, over to you.
Thank you, Achla. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to talk to all these august people, gathering, important people. And coming to COVID, I think it has been a very challenging period for all of us. For the last 1.5 years, this COVID is, posing so many problems to everybody, and social, social gatherings and everything has been stopped. So mental health problems are also there. And challenges to pregnant women are really unique, One is that they are scared of the disease. They are, really worried whether what will happen to them if they contract the disease, what will happen to the baby if they contract the disease. The second thing was the lack of antenatal care. These women were not able to get the antenatal care as and when desired, as was being done in the non-COVID period. These people were so scared. Only, few telecommunications and going to the hospital itself was scary for these women, that if we go to the hospital, we maybe contract the disease and it will be harmful. So that was a big challenge, lack of antenatal care. And on top of that, the pregnancy complications, But in the first phase, when we saw that everybody kept on saying that pregnancy does not pose any extra, problem on the mother as well as on the baby. Only it may lead to a little higher chances of preterm birth. That was the first wave. But the second wave was absolutely different. That, really scared all the obstetrician and all the pregnant patients also. The pregnancy complications, especially for the symptomatic patients, those who were symptomatic pregnant patients, there was increased chances of hospitalization, increased chances of admission to ICU, increased incidence of ventilatory support to these women, and increase in the mortality. We have seen that in the last 10 months, we had only 10 mortalities out of 300. But in the last 2 months, out of 100, we had 10 mortalities. So the mortality increased from 4% to almost 10%. And similarly, the stillbirth rate That also increased. Initially, our stillbirth rate was 24 per thousand, 24 to 25 per thousand in the non-COVID period. And now it has increased to 34 per thousand. Again, the many factors, confounding factors are there. Maybe lack of antenatal care, maybe the COVID infection, all these things were important. So, and still the pregnancy vaccine, the vaccines to the pregnancy women, the thing came that how we can prevent this COVID infection occurring to the women. The vaccination, which was available to the general public, and it was very well observed that in second wave, when the vaccination, the people who were vaccinated had less severe disease, even if they had the severe disease, or they did not have the disease. So that was a very reassuring thing. And then the trials in other countries, especially with the mRNA vaccine, was done, and it clearly showed that there is no side effects, no adverse effects on the pregnant woman and the baby if it is given in the pregnancy. So with the second wave, when you weigh the benefit versus the risk to the pregnant woman, the risk of increased mortality, the risk of increased ventilatory support, risk of an increased admissions in the ICU, all these forced almost forced all the governments, many of the countries started giving vaccines to the pregnant women, especially Australia and US, other countries were giving a vaccination. And similarly, so in our country also, FOGSI as well as the gynecologists, the expert group, all recommended that the benefits of giving the vaccines are much, much better, more than the harm which are anticipated, which may be anticipated, but of course, long-term studies are limited. So the government of India, decided on 2nd of July, there was before that there was a meeting in which we were all informed about the, decision. And then on 2nd of July, the decision came that all the pregnant women can be given vaccination. So how the journey went through and how did you, convince? I think we have Nirja with us now, so Nirja can talk about it. But I must tell you that three things. Important thing is that we as a gynecologist, at the moment, even after it is passed, it is being recommended by the government of India, our patients are not getting it freely. So many obstetricians also refuse. It may be harmful. So gynecologists have that it is really safe, it is effective and safe. Both the things have to be considered, efficacy as well as safety. And secondly, we have to, advise all our gynecologists, all the obstetricians should know that what is the best time to give the vaccine and at what gestation and what vaccine to be given. We will be talking all about these things with your, with your questions in this thing, and if something is this, we will take it up. But I will invite Dr. Nirja to talk about the journey. How did she convince as a member of the group to government recommend this vaccine for pregnant women also?
So over to you, Dr. Nirja. We've already introduced you. So we wanted to know from you the journey, and then we'll come on to the queries of the people which are just pouring in. Dr. Nirja,
yes.
over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Achula. I'm so sorry. We had today another long-awaited dream is on the verge of coming true, our mother and child block at AIIMS. So there's a lot of action going on because we want to operationalize it this week. So director had suddenly come for a round and I've just come back from there. So I'm glad that I was able to connect on the phone and listen to Dr. Pratima's talk. And yes, I have been a member of ENTAGI. And initially, in fact, I became a member of ENTAGI based on my interest, as you know, in HPV vaccine. So I didn't know at that time that being over there will be so useful from point of view of the COVID vaccination, because being the only gynecologist in the group, so it became quite useful to be over there and be the spokesperson. I should say I had the honor that I could be the spokesperson for FOGSI. So as you are well aware, and as Dr. Pratima has said very nicely, that it was already, just one. So, so the ENTAGI actually, we have also within ENTAGI some subgroups. And we have a group on maternal immunization as well. And the FOGSI president is a part of that. So Dr. Nandita Palshetkar was there in those discussions, as well as we had other members, Aparna and all in that group. So last year, in fact, when we looked at the data, and as Dr. Pratima said, that there was not so much of serious illness in the pregnant women. And it was about the risk versus benefit scenario that we have to always see. And we did not also have any of what is called the DART studies, the direct animal reproductive toxicity reports to say. I'm going to switch now to my computer. So can you unmute me?
You have to unmute.
Yeah. So we did not, have the DART studies. So we actually asked the companies to get this DART studies done for the vaccines which we have, because all the data, all the approval from WHO and from the Americans and everybody, UK, everything was based on the DART studies that they had for the mRNA vaccines, whereby they had given women the option. Many women had taken that option also. So when we asked them to come back with that, and then meanwhile, the whole thing settled and there was no wave anymore, and people had become a little bit, you could see all the cases piling up in Brazil, here, there, but you somehow didn't expect that it will come back in such a worse form, even if it comes back. So we were not really necessarily too much worried, I have to say that. Waiting for the companies to come back with the data before we do anything. But when the second wave came with such a bang, as Dr. Pratima has described it very effectively, then there was a complete clarity. And in fact, I will appreciate Dr. N.K. Arora, who is the chairperson of the COVID vaccine, COVID working group, who has gone to great lengths to even talk to, for example, Andrew Pollard, who is the person who has developed AstraZeneca in the UK, who is himself a pediatrician and member of SAGE and all that, and got a lot of data which was not even in the published domain to analyze and see where we stand. So net result is this, that they had data to show that it will be safe when it is used in pregnant women in a situation where there is so much of severity of disease. So it was a comparison of the risk of ICU admission and severe disease versus the risks from the vaccine, the side effects. And it was clear that the vaccine was a benefit, whether it was Covishield or Covaxin. Then a little bit of hurdle again, because suddenly as they were ready to, there was one death in Brazil of AstraZeneca. So again, we had to go back, and FOGSI support was invaluable, because the letter from Dr. Alpesh saying that we have the 38,000 FOGSI members who are going to support, who are going to follow the instructions of the ministry and will communicate these instructions to the patients and will make sure that you are getting the implementation the way you want. So I think that went a long way to give a reassurance, because FOGSI does have a great credibility in the eyes of the ministry. But, and then it was like, just one woman having a problem. You cannot have so many women having the side effects. So I was very forceful in one thing, that it is a denial of rights to the pregnant woman if we are not going to give her the option to take it. And it is, at the end of the day, what we call an opt-in approach. It's not like sabko lag raha hai, aapko lagwana nahi hai, to aap mana kar dijiye. No. It is like, aapko lagwana hai, so you have to actively sign in with CoWIN, and you actively have to look for a slot and go and get it done. It's not going to be at your antenatal center. So that comfort, whatever that may be, is not going to be there. So it is an opt-in approach. Women have to be advised and they have to go and take it. And looking at the safety data, I mean, Covaxin being an inactivated vaccine, we know that that is not a problem. And the coagulation risk being there with AstraZeneca, but broadly, when we have looked at all the side effects in our country, in the non-pregnant male and female, it's a very low risk. So therefore, unless there is some women who are at increased risk of the coagulation problem, then both the vaccines really are quite all right in our population. That was the final conclusion.
Thank you, Neerja. I think now we will come to the question after we had listened to Dr. Monica. Shivam, please unmute Dr. Monica Rana. Shivam? Shivam, unmute Dr. Monica. Dr. Monica, maybe you can unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Monica, as I told you earlier also, she is the Directorate of Family Planning, and she is looking after all the vaccination, immunization. And we are very lucky to have her with us to solve our queries which the people have, and maybe motivate the doctors to help get their patient vaccinated. Dr. Monica, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Atula. So I can't claim to be an expert or anything in this, but just because I am kind of, the directorate is playing a key role in the vaccination, COVID vaccination in Delhi. So that is how I happen to be, and I'm really privileged to be a part of this August gathering of experts. So my probably we'll be able to address some of the queries related to the operational aspects, like how it is being given and COVID में कैसे होगा और कहाँ पे लगा है. So those things we can probably pitch in. But I'm really glad to be here with experts who've actually framed the guidelines, and as I was listening to Dr. Neerja. So from our side, what we have to say is earlier the pregnant women and lactating women were not included, although we were getting evidence from across the globe that it is kind of helpful for the pregnant women. It is, she should have it. So we were waiting for the official guidelines to come from Government of India. And after that elaborate process of actually going into, sieving the entire evidence and studies and the data collected across the globe, and then NECVAC having gone into the nitty-gritties. And finally, we have now got the guidelines from Government of India, and we are now providing this vaccine to all the women in all our CVCs. The pregnant women can go to any CVC, private or government, and get herself vaccinated. The process is the same. And as per the guidelines, as Madam had already said, the benefit really outweighs the risk, which we have already seen as per the data which is available with us. स्टडीज अभी उतने नहीं हैं, लेकिन जो भी हमारे ऑब्जर्वेशंस और पिछले सेकेंड वेव में रहे हैं, प्रेग्नेंट women are at a much at a higher risk of ending up in a more severe disease, and thus landing up in ICU and coming out with more adverse outcomes. So it is, and reserve with that the side effects that have been observed, and many countries are already using these vaccines. AstraZeneca is also being used in many countries. So those side effects are not to that extent that we should withhold the vaccine from her. So as per the guidelines, at every opportunity, a pregnant woman has to be counseled as to why she should, take the vaccine. And then she has to be explained that these are the risks of the disease. And there is some risk of side effects, but it's not more than what is there in a normal general population. And so you have to weigh that, and the vaccine is available, and you can take it. And then she should be offered the vaccine. And if she is convinced and she's understood everything, and so we should administer the vaccine. So we have to counsel her, offer her, and then if she wants it, we should administer the vaccine. We have to explain to her that long-term side effects are still not known. That is how it is, because the time really hasn't elapsed where we can comment. But it will be much better for her to take the vaccine. So that kind of information and that kind of, she has to be told so that she can make an informed choice. And then we give her the vaccine. Second very important thing which we want to emphasize here is, till now, all the AAFIs go to the medical side of the hospital or center. Now, when the AAFIs come, they will be coming to the obstetricians. So you have to know that all AAFI, any adverse event which you feel could be related to the vaccine has to be reported, because we now have to gather the data. We have to gather the data proactively. So when we start vaccinating them, we should have robust data coming. So, and all the obstetricians have to be kind of trained, or they have to be familiarized with the CRF and the CIF. and also CRF भरना है, किसको बताना है, immediately किसको बताना है, और क्या क्या information आपको collect करके उस form में भेजनी है, and it has to be uploaded. That will be done by the nodal officer. You will be having a nodal officer in the hospital, or we can have a session if you feel. We can organize a session wherein we can train you into how to report the AFIs and where to report the AFIs. So that will help us in collecting the necessary data, which will then help the experts to come up with any follow-up kind of guidelines, or saying that what kind of pregnancy it should be taken, where we can avoid it, in what kind of scenarios it will be, we should be more cautious. So those things will come when we have more data. So from my side, I'm here if you have any queries along the course of the webinar. So we can hear the experts now.
Thank you, Dr. Monica, and we'll take you up on that how the events have to be reported, because the woman would go back to her obstetricians when she has a problem. She wouldn't go back to the center where she took the vaccine from. So I think it is mandatory that we tell and train all the obstetricians, all the centers, wherever deliveries are occurring, wherever patients are dying, how they have to report. I think we will take you up on that. So now to go on with our session, ask our experts. I would ask Monica. Monica is the Honorary Secretary of AOGD. She is going to take up all the questions from the experts. So Monica, over to you. And Shivam, can you get Josna Suri also into the picture?
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I again, thank from bottom of my heart, Dr. Neecha Bhatla, Dr. Pratima Mittal, and Dr. Monica Rana to, have agreed to come on this forum to, allay all our anxieties and all the queries of, especially us, the gynecologists. And, when we envisaged this small meeting, or, so to say, webinar, we asked people around what are the most common queries, and we asked people to gather the questions from their circles also. So we have with us two well-known practitioners from Delhi also, Dr. Deepa Gupta and Dr. Anita Sabharwal, who have collected a lot of questions from their circles of practitioners. So eventually I'll ask them also to come over and join us in asking the queries. But just to start off the things, amongst the questions received, tens and 20s and many questions we received. Amongst them, the most common, I'll just put forward, and just to set the ball rolling. And thanks to Dr. Monica and Dr. Neerja, they have very beautifully elaborated few of the queries already, like, how this actually came into being after so much of hustles that pregnancy is not being allowed and not being allowed in our country, and then eventually yes, we one fine day we said yes to vaccine in pregnancy. And of course what Dr. Monica Rana said, the documentation part, though ma'am, we'll just come back to you for the documentation once again, but these were two main queries already which you have kind of apprised. So next, coming on to the next other important thing is what people are asking is what is the best time, like trimester wise, or pregnancy, what is how it should be scheduled, and if a patient has already had COVID, does she still require vaccine in this pregnancy? These are the two main queries. And the third one would be if any other vaccine has to be given in pregnancy, which are the routine vaccination of pregnancy, can they be combined, or is there any separation of there is some duration between COVID vaccine and those vaccines? So let's start from here. Dr. Neerja, ma'am, please.
So the first question is that when we can give it in pregnancy, and that answer is the sooner the better. The sooner the better, because that will give adequate time to take the second dose also, and to mount a good antibody response also. And that will ensure that in case by any chance she contracts the infection during this pregnancy, either it will protect her from contracting the infection, or it will protect her for sure from severe disease. So both ways, the sooner she gets her antibodies, the better. And then there is hope that there may be a crossover of the antibodies, which may protect the baby also. We don't really have too much data on that, but we definitely hope for that also. So sooner the better, that's the bottom line.
So any trimester is safe, ma'am, till whatever
Yes,
time
yes.
she's presenting to you.
Yes, any
She
trimester
can be
is
advised.
yes.
Okay. And the other query was any kind of duration to be kept. Pratima ma'am, you'll have to
Pratima
unmute
wants to
yourself.
say something on that.
I want to add one thing, that if you have even, if you have taken a vaccine in the, in the luteal phase, like when you are not knowing that you are pregnant, even then, I think we should continue with the second dose as and when it is required. It is not to be, stopped, that you have to stop it. And
absolutely.
Preferably, we should complete the immunization by 28 weeks. Because third trimester, the severity is more. So it is preferable that you should complete the immunization of COVID vaccination by 28 weeks. Preferable.
Okay.
But it's not a must that it can be given in any trimester.
So the duration of doses, ma'am, is the same what is to be followed for general population and pregnancy?
Right, it's the same. And if they've had COVID, then we give it 3 months after the COVID. They still need to take.
So there are two situations, ma'am. Like one is when they've had COVID and now she gets to know she's pregnant. Like, no sooner than she got to know that she had COVID, maybe immediately later she got to know she is pregnant now. Or the other situation can be she's had COVID in past, maybe 3 months have already passed, and now she gets to know she is pregnant or she is planning pregnancy that way. So either ways, you're saying that if there is a history of COVID, there should be a difference of 3 months for the first dose to be started, right? So I just kind of summated it for everybody's benefit. And the other thing would be, as I asked, the routine, vaccination, which anyways are there in the pregnancy, the tetanus toxoid and the Tdap vaccine, the flu vaccine. If the patient is Rh negative, maybe the, prophylactic NTD. So all those things, any kind of injectable vaccines or otherwise, which are being given in pregnancy routinely, is there any correlation with COVID vaccine with them? Or any precaution to be taken if they are simultaneously being given?
So the general recommendation is to give a 2 weeks gap between the vaccines, and that is primarily so that you don't confuse the side effects of one with the other. There is not a real risk if they are given at a shorter interval or even together. They have to be given on different limbs if they are given together, so that they recruit a different set of nodes and a different set of antigen presenting cells. But the recommendation is don't do it together. Recommendation is give a gap of 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay, that's great, ma'am.
And it will be a different provider anyway, because you have to go to the COVID center for the COVID vaccine. And
yeah, that's one very nice thing, because many people
space it out.
Many people read it from here, there, the literature, and they said that, maybe a different site, maybe one arm, one vaccine, the other arm, other vaccine can be done.
Yes, that is normally recommended also. And that is how pediatricians do it also when they give the same day injections. That they do it at 2 different places. They do multiple injections on the same day for childhood vaccines all the time. So then
even if she happens to go to a center to get a COVID vaccine on one side and she's like hell-bent on pertinent, then she should preferably be taking it on the other side.
Yes,
but if possible, have a gap of say around 2 weeks between any two vaccines. That's great, ma'am. And just one very small query to Dr. Monica, ma'am, regarding the documentation which you said. No matter how much we try and how much the information we also gather as clinicians, when we are presenting this to our patients, we might not have 100% kind of compliance or agreement with our clients. So in that case, is it necessary to document it even on our ANC record sheets that the such and such person was counseled for vaccination, but she refused, or maybe she has taken one dose somewhere else, now she has presented to us, all those sorts of mixtures and combinations of presentations. What is an ideal clinician maybe sitting in a general practice or sitting in a government setup is supposed to do, ma'am?
See, if you are supposed to be counseling her, if after counseling, if she refuses to take the vaccine, So it will always be good for you to record it somewhere in your card that she was counseled but is not willing to take the vaccine. And if she takes the vaccine, then of course you will be recording it that she has taken the vaccine on this date and she's supposed to come back after say 3 months. If she's taking Covishield, then it is 3 months. If she's taking the other one, then it will be 28 days. So it will be, you have to, I mean, you should record it on that. And if she's refusing, then also it's good to record somewhere that she was counseled, that, but she has not taken.
Because ma'am, in our tertiary institutes, when we get referrals or when we get patients from all walks of life, they may not be pertinently staying at one particular place. You know, they sometimes go to their in-law, sometimes they go to their mother's place. So they might have had one vaccine dose somewhere else, and now they present to you. In that case, any particular precaution or anything which we have to be careful about the same, probably the brand, say Covaxin or Covishield, or the duration.
The vaccination will be done through COVID. That is, it cannot be given without registering the person on COVID. So once you're registered on COVID, the details are available there. So if she is carrying her certificate, which is also given in a soft copy, also given in a hard copy, she is carrying that. So you can see on that what vaccine she has received, when she has received. And using that number only, once you type it in the system, you can retrieve her previous record and update it saying she has now received the second dose. Now, in case she does not have, then you can actually, with the phone number also, you can plug. You can put it, then with the phone number, you can see the record in COVID, what vaccine she has received. So whatever
in any case, sorry, ma'am, in any case means a pregnant woman also has to register through the CoWIN app, yes, as the other clients in general population. And as of now, the only route being followed for pregnant women is the CoWIN app. This is what you're trying to say? Yes. Or they can procure like Covishield on their own also? No.
Just like
okay.
any
That's
other.
a very important thing, because people like still are. There were many queries asking about which vaccine to be given in pregnancy. So as of now, with this forum, we should convey this message to all the practitioners. This, as of now, only CoWIN app is the medium to get them registered, and Covaxin is being given right now only. Okay, thank you, ma'am. So I guess, yes, ma'am.
It's not that Covaxin is being given. Both Covishield and Covaxin are being administered, but they have to register on the CoWIN platform. That is the IT platform on which every beneficiary gets registered. See, we have these COVID vaccination centers. They can be private institutions, they can be government institutions. And they all have to register. When they are vaccinating, nothing is offline. You register the person on the CoWIN and then you give the vaccine. It can either be Covishield or Covaxin.
You know,
so
Monica,
either of them can be
even when they walk in, first they are registered and then vaccine is given. Whether they take an appointment or they walk in. Whenever they are vaccinated, their registration is done and then they are vaccinated. So their data would always be
there. And for registration, there is this one route which is CoWIN.
Yes.
No, they don't have to go through a route. Even if they walk in, they would be registered in that app.
The route of registration is CoWIN app. That's what ma'am is trying to say. And it's patient's choice to opt for either Covaxin or Covishield.
See, actually, each CVC has one type of vaccine only, except for the private. Private, we have different types of vaccines. So a woman can choose. But supposing I'm walking in a Covishield site where they are only giving Covishield, then I'll be given Covishield only. But if I'm walking into a private hospital, there they might be having both the type of sessions running simultaneously. There she can choose whether she wants to go for Covishield or Covaxin.
And ma'am, what if the patient comes and asks the clinicians, "Aap bataiye, doctor sahab, Covishield lagwaun ke Covaxin?" Fir kya kare, ma'am?
We'll ask madam what madam has to say.
Okay. Dr. Pratima or Dr. Neerja, ma'am, please.
Actually, we as this thing, some people are saying that there increased chances of thrombogenic phenomena in Covishield, but for all practical purposes, both the vaccines can be given safely. We don't have to say that either this or that. It is a basket of choice. I think even the Sputnik is now going to be available. So any vaccine can be given. What the current WHO statement is, take whatever is available.
Any precautions for any comorbidities, ma'am? Neerja, ma'am?
So, I would say that because we know that Covishield has little more side effects than Covaxin. So if there is really a patient who is a very high risk case, severe hypertension, severe deranged renal problems, uncontrolled diabetes, very rarely seen as such type of in our setup. But if there is somebody like that or with some, hematological baseline problems, then you can definitely consider that if they can take Covaxin, it will be safer for them because they have a little higher risk, and that is nothing to do with pregnancy. You would probably consider the same advice even if they were not pregnant or even if it was male, female, anything. So that type of a situation, yes, if you come across, you could consider telling them that you can look for Covaxin, which has lesser side effects. That is a fact. And rest, there are so many other soft reasons why people are preferring, because WHO has not yet accepted Covaxin on the vaccination passport, but it is likely within next 4-6 weeks. So some people say, oh, I would rather take that one. So there are soft reasons why people prefer one or other.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So I would now like to invite Dr. Deepa to please ask the queries which she has gathered from her circle.
Thank you, Dr. Monica. Thank you, Dr. Neerja ma'am, Dr. Pratima Mittal and Dr. Monica ma'am for enlightening us with almost, I think, all the queries.
Deepa, unmute.
Yeah. There's lots of some practitioners are saying that when they give Covishield to their patients, the patients start bleeding. Even if the bleeding is seen in the post-menopausal patients. So what's your experience on this, ma'am?
I don't think so, that there's any reported event like this that it leads to increased bleeding. I think it's just a coincidence, or maybe the person who is giving it, that has to be checked. I really can't say. I have not read any report regarding bleeding after giving Covishield.
I agree with Dr. Pratima. I have not seen anything, neither in personal experience I have encountered, neither we have read anything, and neither does there seem to be any pathophysiological mechanism that why such a thing should even be anticipated. So I think it may be a chance more than anything else. We should investigate it like we would investigate otherwise. And it will be interesting to see what the result comes out.
Okay,
so where bleeding from where? What is the exact question?
Vaginal bleeding they have. Even in the post-menopausal patient, they saw that. It's a query of some of the practitioners.
Yeah.
I think totally it doesn't have any base. So I think they need to treat their postmenopausal bleeding as it is.
I just had one patient who's been having postmenopausal bleeding off and on, and she had COVID, very bad case, and she was admitted with long COVID symptoms, and she's again had the postmenopausal spotting. So they asked us to see her. So she insisted that always in 2 years, her daughter also insisted, every time I've had bleeding only when I've had stress. So I think the stress causes my bleeding. Somehow we were able to convince her and evaluate her because she had a very thickened endometrium. We thought it may be a polyp, but it was a very polypoidal hyperplastic epithelium, not exactly one polyp. So there was a definite pathology there, and why it should bleed only on stress, or she notices, or sometimes patients put 2 and 2 together, but they don't make it 4. They make it 22.
So should we, do you recommend the start of Ecosporin if we are giving a COVID vaccine to the pregnant patient?
Why should you give Ecosporin? It should be given only in the cases which are indicated cases from obstetrical point of view. Just giving a vaccine and starting Ecosporin doesn't, makes no sense.
Yes, ma'am. Because, ma'am, I have seen some physicians, they had started the Ecosporin in their old patients, like in the senior citizens or something. They recommended they should start. So,
even Neerja will agree with me, the incidence of thromboembolism is 1 in 1 lakh. I think it is so rare, so we should not be really worried about it, unless if the patient is really, really high risk.
Okay, ma'am. If the woman has already COVID in pregnancy, so when should we give her vaccination? Ma'am, you said it's 3 months. So 3 months after the test is positive, or 3 months once the 2 weeks quarantine period is over? That is a very big query with everyone.
I think 3 months after their recovery.
After the recovery. Okay, ma'am.
I think Nirja, it is written. I mean, I read it in the reports only that 3 months after the infection and 2 months after the recovery.
2 months after the recovery. Okay. But I think it's better to not be in a. I mean, it doesn't matter too much unless some patient is reaching third trimester. We have to be more worried about exact dates and all that. And also patients who have received plasma, who are now much fewer because the plasma therapy is gone, they have to wait and not receive the treatment.
So, ma'am, some patients are saying like, ma'am, should we take Covishield or Covaxin, or should we wait because Moderna vaccine can also come? So, what's your take on this? Like, I think Pratima ma'am already said that we should preferably give whatever is available to them, and preferably otherwise Covaxin if they want a preference from us, because of the less side
I
effects.
think you are taking a wrong message, Deepa. Nobody ever said they should preferably take Covaxin. They've just that a patient who is having many comorbidities which make her prone to thromboembolism, she may be prescribed like any other non-pregnant person. Otherwise, Covaxin, Covishield, anything, whatever is available, they should take, and depends upon whether they want to go abroad or something, and then probably you would advise them to take Covishield because Covaxin is not yet approved by WHO for traveling. Otherwise, the message is not that preferably Covaxin.
Because
the message is any vaccine, but high risk for thromboembolism, very, very high risk, pregnant or non-pregnant, we prefer Covaxin. Don't take the message that in pregnancy Covaxin is better.
Yes, ma'am. Because many times the patient asks कि ma'am आप क्या prefer करते हैं? हम कौन सी लें? Decision is on you. So in that case, I think we have to be a little bit of defensive, and we should always say whatever is available easily to use.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Whatever is available, because we all know that there are shortages. We know there are supply chain issues, and कहाँ पे उनको slot मिल रहा है और जो भी vaccine मिल रहा है ले लेंगे. उसके बाद वहीं पे जाके फिर उसका second ले लेंगे.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, you said कि we counsel the patient for the vaccination, and she said कि she is very reluctant and she doesn't take it. So should we take a negative consent? Should we write it on the prescription for that?
I think
she advised her and she has not done the COVID
We discussed this, Dr. Deepa. Dr. Monica has already given the answer.
It's better to document.
We need to document.
Yes. And ma'am, how early COVID vaccination can be given in lactation? How early? Like before discharging the patient from the hospital? Can
Again, the thing is that it's not that we can give it to her before discharging. We will have to send her to that COVID center. So, you know, how soon a patient who just delivered will be actually able to go over there and get the vaccination. It really depends on where she lives, where is her center, and where is this thing. It's not that we can give it in the hospital and send her.
That's a good point, ma'am, because she has to be very comfortable for the so that she can go to the center
for half an hour for observation also. So she should feel recovered enough to go through that process of a couple of hours at least by the time she gets in, gets out, and all that.
Yes, ma'am. Now, ma'am, lots of, I think almost all the queries have been covered. I can't see much.
In that case, Dr. Deepa, I'll now request Dr. Anita Sabharwal to kindly, ask the questions and queries she has.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Monica, for giving me the opportunity to ask the, I think, great people over here.
Thank you, Deepa, for helping us to collect questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I think many questions were asked here also, but most.
Anita, you're not audible.
Not audible?
Yeah, better now.
Okay. Is that okay? Can you hear me now? Dr. Monica? Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Monica, Dr. Achla, for giving me the opportunity to be here and ask the questions which many people have asked me to ask you people. And most of them, 80% have been already answered. And now some questions are not related to pregnancy also. Some women who are not pregnant, but they are having their periods, menstrual periods. They are asking the questions whether they can have it during that
time of the menstrual flow, can they have the vaccine? Or is there any side effect? They can.
There is no logic, no this thing that there should be any difference. Giving a vaccine during menstruation should be harmful. They can safely take it during periods.
Right, right.
And Foxy has issued that position statement also.
Right, right. So we can now say with confidence, like they have been asking and we have been answering them the same. But now after listening from you people, the horse's mouth, we shall be able to more confidently answer them. And now second is like the Dr. Deepa just asked about the lactating mother. Now she has taken the vaccine, COVID vaccine, but after the vaccine, she develops fever. So any precautions regarding feeding of the baby? Any specific precautions to be taken?
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Neeja?
Yes, she can take paracetamol and she can feed the baby. There's no problem.
Okay. And now there was one more query that the pregnant woman was staying with the husband and husband developed COVID. He had COVID infection. And now she should take vaccine when? Because in the last epidemic we had in the month of May, so many people were COVID positive at home and many the family members were not even getting tested because they were telling them that one person has, so means others are also having it. So now in that case, how do we know how to and when to vaccinate the pregnant woman?
I think best will be just to identify after she's been in contact. There is no, system to identify, but you must identify that she's not having COVID before giving vaccine. So you should do a test after 48 hours, I think, Neerja, 48 hours, right? And if she's negative for COVID, then she should go ahead with that vaccination. And follow all the precautions like social distancing and washing hands as well as wearing the mask. All those precautions have to be followed. But she can, after getting it tested, but you cannot give vaccine to a patient who is suffering from COVID, whether asymptomatic or symptomatic. So that is a contraindication. If you are suffering from...
Dr. Pratima, we can follow the same thing like when we do for hospital. Anybody who gets exposed to COVID, we ask them to get tested after 5 days. After 5 days, if they are negative, we ask them to come for work. So similarly, after the last exposure, 5 days later, they can get a RT-PCR done. If they are negative, they can take the vaccine.
Right.
Same principle can be followed.
Yes.
Right. So I get it that if she was with her husband, like she was exposed, so after 5 days of the negative test, she will get...
No. After 5 days of exposure, she gets the test done. And if she is negative, then she can go.
She can get it sooner. Sooner the better. Right. Okay. Then as we were talking...
Actually, Dr. Manju Puri is saying she should wait for 14 days of isolation. I think that is a good recommendation because they could manifest symptoms up to 14 days. So the husband who has contracted the infection should go into a good isolation really. And she should not be going in and out of his room anyway. And then she can be tested... if there's a good isolation, she can be tested after 5 to 7 days, but it'd be good to wait for 2 weeks before she goes to get the vaccine to be sure she hasn't got any symptoms.
So the final answer is that she should be quarantined for 2 weeks. And after those 2 weeks, she should be tested. And if she is negative, then she can go for the vaccine. Right, Dr. Neeja? Okay. Right. So this query is also answered. Now one more query, probably you've already answered, but still they are saying, the question has been asked, the health ministry has advised caution in vaccinating persons with a history of bleeding or coagulation disorder. How does a person know if she has a coagulation disorder, whether she should get any test done and then go for the vaccine?
Actually, like we read in our AOB guidelines, that anybody who has history of bleeding from gums, anybody who has had PPH, anybody who has menorrhagia since start, those are the history which will tell us that she has. Otherwise, it's not such a common thing that everybody should be tested for that.
Yeah, and then the converse also, did they have any history of DVT or any history that they have developed any clotting phenomenon or anything like that?
So we can always, that means we can advise them to go to their obstetrician while they go for their antenatal checkup. So they can ask them about this. So they will be able to tell them better with the history, whether to go for any testing or not. So because this was a question asked to me, sent to me, so I thought I should ask you. And one more question is, if one is taking medicines for illnesses like cancer, diabetes, hypertension, etc., and she takes the COVID-19 vaccine, is there any safety to the vaccine? Is it safe for her to take the vaccine?
I think comorbidities per se do not change the, vaccination schedule or vaccination.
Okay. And
I think these are the people who must take, because if COVID occurs to them, they will have, more problem than other people.
Yes.
Somebody said thalassemics, yes, they can take it, no problem.
Okay. Okay. And then a pregnant woman with a history of recurrent pregnancy loss, can she take the COVID vaccine?
Yes.
Is it safe to take COVID vaccine?
Yes. Yes.
Woman?
Yes. Safely.
Okay.
No contraindication.
Right, right. And one more last question, which I think Dr. Pratima ma'am has already answered also in the beginning only, that as pregnancy is also a hypercoagulable state, is it advisable to give COVID vaccine in the late third trimester of pregnancy?
I have said early, because severity of the disease is much, much higher in the late trimester, third trimester. So it is better to, complete the vaccination by 28 weeks. But if it is not completed, it should be given, and it should be completed in third trimester also.
Right. So I think these are the questions which I had got, and many other questions you people had already answered. So I think a lot of queries solved.
Another question which has come is, she has had COVID. She has history of COVID. So should she be getting antibody titers done before being advised or taking COVID in this pregnancy?
No role of antibody titer at the moment, no role at all, because we really don't know which is the cutoff and what is the, really effective, level of at which, because for some, even small titer, little titer also is helpful in, preventing the disease. So no role of antibody titers.
There are many mechanisms. There are many mechanisms of immunity. It's not just this antibody or that antibody. So that is why it is not recommended to rely on the antibody at all, even post-vaccination.
Okay.
One more question is there, that some people are saying that if they've had COVID and they're treated, and will they be able to contract COVID again? Or are they immune to it now once they've had COVID, so they can go anywhere?
Answer to all these questions is that it is the same as far as the general population. Whatever is the thing, most of the time it is seen that the different strains are there, so people can have it. Maybe the severity is less, but we cannot really, these things are still in the gray area. We cannot really comment on this.
So they still have to take precautions.
Yes. I mean, generally 3 months is protective, but you should still be taking precautions.
Yes, right.
Neerja ma'am, somebody has asked, can you throw some more light on Sputnik vaccine in pregnancy?
So again, Sputnik vaccine, it's a little bit different from these other vaccines, in that it has 2 different types of vaccine in the 2 doses. It's not the same one again. The second one is very similar to our Covishield, and the first one is a component vaccine. So, but it's fine. It's fine to give in pregnancy. There's nothing against it, but it's not due for getting the WHO approval. Will probably be later than Covaxin.
Okay. I guess
Monica Kanika has raised her hand. Shivam, can you enter Kanika? Kanika has raised her hand to ask a question, and another person has also, Vandana. Two people had
Dr.
raised their hands.
Vandana Walvekar from Bombay, is it?
My question has been answered. I asked about thalassemics. Thank you very much, Dr. Nirja.
Thank you. Nice to have you, Dr. Vandana. Thank
Yes.
you for joining.
Yeah, and Kanika also raised her hand.
She has left.
She's left.
So another like similar query is there, which you probably in part have already answered, ma'am. One situation can happen if her anti-rabies vaccine is due on the same day as the second dose of COVID vaccine, and both have to be taken in the same day. Then should COVID second dose be delayed a bit?
So I think basically if there's a situation like that, like we said, there's always the feasibility that you can give on different arms, the different ones can be done. And since we know that the anti-rabies one hardly has any side effects really, so we don't have to worry. But again, we have to see even delaying the COVID vaccine for 2 weeks doesn't matter too much. So I would say that if she is taking it in early pregnancy and she's still in second trimester, it's quite okay to delay for 2 weeks. But if she's already nearing her 28-week mark, then I would say just take it on the same day. So I think a little bit of individualizing is required.
We have to kind of be wary about this gestational period and preferably try to finish off the schedule before 28
You know, the
weeks.
basic thing about the 2 weeks gap is basically that it gets you out of the AEFI window. Otherwise, you'll have a side effect and you'll have to say, do you think it was caused by this vaccine? So you want to not be confused yourself that there were two, was it this, was it that, and all of that.
Dr. Reena Vani has raised her hand, I guess. Shivam, please let her in.
I think we're very lucky to have such illustrious people in the audience today. Hello,
Yes,
Dr.
that's what even we noticed, ma'am. It's really great.
Thank you very much
Hello, Dr.
for
Reena.
the excellent information. I just wanted to share that in Maharashtra, we have been given guidelines from Thursday to start vaccinating women in our CVCs and with counseling by gynecologists along with the CVC nodal person. And about the rabies vaccine, this query has been discussed by us. And if the patient has come in time and it is possible, it has been suggested that both can be given at different sites if it is an urgent situation with counseling and observation for a pregnant woman who got a dog bite. So that was what has been discussed.
It's a very progressive step by Maharashtra. Maybe others will also follow suit, and that will make it very convenient for the women and it will really improve the uptake.
Yes, in fact, it's great that they have had a nodal officers meeting at the district level and almost 200 centers participated. And they are hoping that once the state disperses the vaccine, we are supposed to start. But honestly, right now, there is a shortage of vaccine at our municipal centers and we are awaiting the supply, but we are putting the preparations in place and getting the counseling strategies done. Thank you.
Thank you for that information, Dr. Vani. And another thing, I mean, like it's a funny situation, but still the query is query. Maybe if a patient is not wanting to deliver in India and wants to deliver in any other country, then preferably which vaccine should she be started on?
This Nirja has already answered this. Then preferably she should take Covishield because at the moment Covaxin is not approved for traveling.
So Covishield is?
Yes. So Covishield has been approved by WHO. So it's on that list. And then there was the whole controversy that even though it was approved by WHO, the European Union said that AstraZeneca is okay, but Covishield is not. And then finally that has been resolved and even there they are accepting in many countries. So if it's a country which says that if you're vaccinated, you will not be quarantined, then Covishield will allow you that. But WHO now, the Covaxin data has also been submitted and they will scrutinize it, and it is hoped that within 4 to 6 weeks that will come, but we don't have it present.
Have there any reports on myocarditis after this vaccine, ma'am, in pregnancy? Any info on that? Because there was one question which said that patient experiences chest pain on day 3 of vaccination. Could it be due to myocarditis due to the vaccine?
So theoretical possibility, yes. but they need to go and get checked out and see that, because I think there are various tests that are required at this point, including the platelet levels, including the ECG, including a general assessment of whether it is just a coincidental hyperacidity or something like that causing, because that's a common problem in pregnancy as well. And it should be evaluated. And the system of AEFI reporting is also rather simplified. They give you that number and you can call them and report, and the nodal officer gets in touch with you quite well.
Okay. So ma'am, in your experience, like you being the person involved in the whole helm of affairs, in your practical experience, have you actually started prescribing and telling the patients to get the thing done?
Yes, we have.
Because people want to see people starting it. And
posters that came, the counseling things have all been printed out and have been put up. And some patients have been asking themselves also, including some doctors and including non-doctors also have been asking, should we go and get it done? So we have been telling them, and some doctors definitely I know have taken, and others because it's early days, so we'll know when they come back for their next visit. But patients have been of both kinds. There's some who say we don't want it, but there are many who say we want it. So let's see how it goes.
So I guess from today itself, all clinicians can be directed that, they can let their patients to get registered and start taking it.
Somebody is asked, can they prescribe it? So answer is they don't have to prescribe.
Yeah, anyways.
Just tell the patient to register or go to a center and take it. Patient doesn't need a written prescription for COVID vaccination.
Counseling has to be done.
We can always document that patient counseled for COVID vaccination and then for the patient to take it further.
Right.
Okay. During periods, yeah, ma'am, another issue about the epilepsy and heart disease. I guess comorbid you have already answered, but.
Yes, so for comorbidities, that was the recommendation, and that is earlier for others also, and now also, that these patients should take the vaccine in a place where there is a full equipment to manage any side effects if they occur. So, a hospital facility.
A tertiary center preferably.
Not just, not in one of the smaller places.
Okay, ma'am. I guess, please let us know. We should document our discussion with the patient regarding vaccine, especially when patient, I think this has been answered. And what if the second dose gets missed or delayed for over 2 weeks? Does it affect the efficacy?
No. And in fact, now with Covishield, it's going longer and longer because they're finding that the more the gap, the better the results are coming. Even Pfizer has said that it will be better if it is delayed. Even with HPV vaccine, we have found the same. It is better if it is delayed. So I think we should not worry if it is delayed. Just go and take the dose whenever you can.
The idea is to complete the vaccination schedule. And
Right. And also, how long side effects last? Well, most of the side effects are done within a week. Most of the side effects are done, in fact, within 4 days. So
and most of the side effects, as you said, ma'am, are not that, not that very worrying or horrifying.
At the injection site, or, some is saying they're usually done within 3-4 days and definitely not before a week.
But it's preferable if she's having those side effects, she can better consult, her respective physician or obstetrician accordingly, and they will be subsided in time with the symptomatic treatment. Any special takes on those who are APLA positive?
I think that might be a category you could consider giving Covaxin. I don't know what Dr. Mittal thinks about it.
I think there is no special recommendation for APLA positive. It is just
not really.
And what about this other question is that the patient fainted after 24 hours. Is it okay?
Yeah, I just read.
Just a chance finding again. Maybe anxiety and anxiousness.
I think they should take plenty of fluids, especially in these hot days. They should take plenty of fluids.
And anyways, ma'am, like any other general population, I guess this is a must thing that even pregnant patients have to wait for half an hour in the facility for, to be observed, which is the routine protocol. So that all those things should already be conveyed to our pregnant clients, and probably it's a proper counseling, as you said, will do the trick to allay their anxieties. Yes, I guess the same question, APLA positive patient on aspirin, then vaccine can be advised.
Yeah, even people who are on aspirin have been taking it, so APLA positive and aspirin can also take it.
But both ways. If on aspirin, vaccine should not be denied, and with vaccine, aspirin should not be added on. I guess that's the take home.
I think we had a very fruitful discussion, and only thing I would like to reiterate when there was a little confusion, that if there is exposure to a pregnant woman to a COVID positive person, isolation of 14 days, and then she can take the vaccine if she has no symptoms, because there was a little confusion. So I thought I'll just reiterate it. 14 days wait is a must. And if she has no symptoms, then she can take it.
And maybe like routine general population also, ma'am, if she's having fever, cold or mild some coryzal symptoms, she should better wait to
like for any other vaccination. And somebody again asked about thalassemia. I said there's no difference because people can take it. They are taking it. So I guess that's all. Monica, anything more?
I guess, ma'am, all the questions have been really beautifully answered. And it's very encouraging to see that all those who have joined us have been constantly asking this question. And, as always, teachers like Dr. Manjupuri, and, they are already answering on the chat box also. So it's very heartening to see that.
Dr. Manju Sharma asked, anemia, no precautions, same as other people. So thank you, Dr. Monica. I think, thank you.
Maybe if she has something to add for the administrative aspect, Dr. Monica, if have we covered all the things which you probably had in mind?
No, I think everything has been covered beautifully. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, Dr. Monica, and sparing your time. And thank you, Dr. Nirja. And I won't thank Pratima because she is part of us.
I am also part of. Don't thank me.
Yes, I will thank you too. Because this was a much needed information required by everybody. I saw every day people were asking you on the website or WhatsApp group. I thought I'll have you on the forum and have their question answers.
And we still have 100 strong audience right now. So, people are really happy with the...
Thank you, Anita Sabharwal, for gathering the questions for us. We asked many people, but only Anita and Deepa came forward and collected the questions. So thank you very much.
Pratima ma'am was saying something. Pratima ma'am?
Just saying that Nirja and myself are together in the perinatal, making guidelines for COVID in the perinatal group. So that also helped us a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing the experience with us, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Manju Puri, for always being our off-stage panelist.
Back-end support.
Shivam, can we have Manju Puri on our screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we have Dr. Manju Puri on screen?
No, I can't be on the screen. Yeah.
Okay.
We can just have your final words or advice or whatever you have to share with us.
Very well done. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody can now have a cup of tea.
Thank you from your side.
Okay. Okay, Shivam, thank you. Yes, recording would be available. We'll put it on our YouTube. Please see AOGD Events YouTube whenever you want to see anything done on the AOGD platform.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.